Welcome to WICKERSON Studios. This series is called Geometry to the Point and Beyond, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to skip over the basics, which are fairly common to learning any new program, but we're going to jump directly into the Python node and show you how to build geometries, lines, vectors, some methods of those vectors, what to do with those vectors, curves, and then we'll move on to surfaces, meshes, and beyond and get into more complex algorithms and computational studies. So that's a lot to do, but let's keep these videos nice and short. Geometry to the point and beyond, the Ghpython node at WICKERSON Studios. Let's start fresh. Let's go on in and grab ourselves in the Math tab. You should have a Python script. I'm assuming they have some basics Python. We are actually going to take off all the other geometries as well, so we're not looking at anything else, and we will create this within a shaded window frame. And we'll probably work within this grid between the X and Y and flat to start. So what you're going to want to do is open your Ghpython node. I'm not going to go into the details of it because that's covered in the basics, and you want to open the editor by double clicking. At that point, you're going to have to prepare your node, which is always a good thing to do, and we'll do that alongside writing the script. Let's go from scratch. Every time you import one, chances are the script will import, and I'm going to be following along pretty to the point, import rhino.geometry, which we may end up using, and that's an option for you to use, as RG, because we'll be going into Rhino common namespaces often. And every time we probably will import Rhino script syntax as RG. Some of these short forms may change, we'll see. A couple of spaces, you're going to create point 1. Point 1 can be produced either by using Rhino geometry dot point 3 doubles. And a lot of people think that those are 3 dimensions, but it is 3 doubles, so you must list those 3 doubles. I'm going to hard code them in. No, I'm not. I'm going to put them in as X, Y, Z. And then I'm going to bring in another point 2. And for just changing it up's sake, I'm going to bring it in through Rhino script syntax. And you will find the similar tool for Rhino script syntax is add point. So adding point will then ask for, and I have a little problem here on line 5. Oh, because I'm not done. I'm just always watching down at the bottom at my runtime error. And you'll see me at times output different things to see how my script's doing. And I'm going to start you from this and have you have this as a habit from the start. So anytime you want to test something, your output will tell you certain things, but you can always specifically see what the problems are. So I'm putting panels on the ends of this node. And I also want to ensure that my inputs are starting to work at this point. So I just added a Z because I'm going to need an X, Y, Z. And when I type that, I'm going to leave it as an item access. I'm going to go to type int and say I want to float on that. Same thing for Y, type int float. And same thing for Z, type int float. I have to set my variables. And then I have to bring something in. So let's bring in 2.0, which would be slider 0 to 10. We'll copy that a couple times. We'll shoot that around on the sliders a little bit. Sometimes you use gene pool and play around with this. Let's just move that around as points for point 1, 2, 3. And I'll show you how you can kind of play with adding the other numbers if you want to, or hard code them. At this point, I've got something running, but the script's not going to run because the script's not completely ready to test and close the script. I'm going to add these ones as X times X plus Y, Y plus Z, and this is all option for you to play with. But the more you play with this, the better you will get at scripting and the better you'll catch your errors. So there's 2 points that are created because of those number slider floats that are being brought in and declared. And then you must point 1 underscore, you don't have to do that, but I write it point 1 out, and you must set that to point 1 because you want to set your outputs, and point 2 out. It's just common practice of how I put it, I format it. Point 2 out. And now if I run that and test it, the script should run. It says there's a problem, and line 4, it says it has no attribute to add point to Rhino script. And I did wonder why it didn't come up when I did it, and there's the error. Import Rhino script syntax as RG. Should have been brought in as RS. And I should have noticed that while I was typing it, because as I was typing, and I'll show you what was happening, as I was typing, let's say point 3 equals RS dot. I should have had a bunch of choices and they didn't come up. And as soon as I saw that in the back of my mind, you'll get better at it. I should have known there was going to be a problem farther along. Let's run the script, and there we go. And we have no problem with it, but the one problem is our output's not labeled what we wanted it to be. And what I wanted to do was show you as you write the script, you could at times write this as 0.1 and test through 0.1 if the script's working until that point. So hit test, and there you go. Your 0.1 matches your sliders. You could then test as you're moving along. This takes some time, but it's a way to debug your script and get very good at that. 0.2 test, and there you go. It shifts to the 0.2 point, which is this plus this, this plus this, this plus this for X, Y, Z. And then in the end, you're going to want to, because you might want that data. You might want to pull more out of it. But in the end, you're going to want 0.1 out, and you're going to zoom in and add another out, and you're going to want a 0.2 out. And you do that when you're done your script and you think you've got everything running through it. But that's a good way to debug it, is break it down, not to just the output that you want to output over here, but any variable you're creating along the way. And because there's no problem with the strip, nothing's running here in our output, so nothing's coming through the out to the output. Now we have our first script. All we have to do is call it something. I will call it Wickerson Studio. What do I? Oh my gosh. We already lost hold of what I wanted to refer to the point. So what we're going to do is, here we go. Sorry for jumping around the canvas like a madman. We're going to call this series to the point, TTP point. And that's it. And that's how we start by scripting. As soon as we're done, we'll hit File, Save, and we have a script that runs. We're able to generate to the point, 2 points on the page. They're parametric through our node. It's very similar, but you see the script's a little more jazzed up than what it would be because it outputs 2 points, not just the data. It outputs them separated, not just as points in a list, and which you can graft and do things with afterwards. But that's a very similar tool. It's going to start pretty dead simple as we begin, because constructing points should look very close to what we just did. So if I was to construct a point here and add these, you're going to find one of those points lines up exactly with one of the points in here. But my script does a little more jazz. It's a short clip. We're going to move on, and we're going to go into number sliders and how that can inform it. And since we just did that, instead of hard coding, we'll go on to how to create an array of points. Let's just leave this for a second. Come back on here, hit enable, and we will take it out of this view and take it over to artistic, and that should allow us to enjoy our colorful field in the end of closing up our script. And we will continue, and that's the first one, and we will now go in and I'll show you from scratch how to generate an array of points. Wickerson Studios, to the point and beyond.